I think it is safe to say that we are all speechless with this chapter. Once again, Fujimoto has found ways to completely throw us off in the most weird, ridiculous, but horrifying way possible. Even though it's alluding to this idea, it's still very grim, mostly because it's relevant and relatable and obviously a scary situation in general, but the way it's presented and how it kind of builds up to it with this tension, it's just horrifying and it's beautifully done. For me personally, this is one of Fujimoto's best chapters. The amount of dread and anxiety and tension being built so slowly and methodically, letting these panels and artwork breathe, these conversations linger for way too long, it builds this sense of unwavering anxiety within yourself, and it's absolutely brilliant. Starting this off, the first thing that I even want to mention is Yoru. I love this character. I love all of the information we're getting. I love the very slow and opening of her personality and identity, because at this point I'm very much convinced that she is a legitimate child, that the War Devil has the personality of a young child. The way she acts, the way she reacts to things, how aggressive she gets, how she can't handle people responding back to her negatively or saying no in general. She acts like a spoiled brat. I think this is such a massive departure to what she was introduced as being the War Devil and monstrous and strong and powerful, yet now that we're seeing more of that personality come out and being challenged directly by Asa, it's incredible. It's hilarious at the same time, and you're even seeing Asa take control of the situation very effortlessly, and that's a massive departure from the character that we were introduced to with her. She was bullied and kind of timid and quiet and very socially distorted from things, but now she's very confident in her own words, especially because this conversation is happening right after her interaction with Denji. So Yoru questions that, thinks that Denji is actually Chainsaw Man, but Asa calls her silly and that she shouldn't believe everything that's going on. And Yoru doesn't necessarily care about the grand picture, she just cares that she was called silly. I love it. The fact that this is the War Devil's personality, how it works so beautifully with Asa's, it's such a vibrant relationship that honestly you can take anywhere. One specific thing that they do mention, which is very vital for spearheading this entire chapter's direction, is that they want to find a way to lure out Chainsaw Man. So Asa brings up the idea that they should draw out a devil within the school. This actually works for Yoru, and she starts to cultivate a plan on how to actually do this and make it a possibility. Turns out it might actually happen for her. The rest of this chapter focuses directly on the relationship of Asa and Yuko. Obviously Yuko previously injured her leg with the devil attack that happened. Asa wants to pay her respects, bring her drinks, etc. Just check up on her really. Now I'll say this, we've come to really enjoy the dynamic of these two. Their friendship and finding each other comfort-wise and honestly just growing together really well. And it feels nice, especially for Asa that has never really had friends before. Yuko is so accepting and lovable and open and honestly just cheery in a lot of ways. Even when she's introduced now, she's happy and vibrant, calling Asa Chainsaw Woman, which I think already right there people are going to jump onto that idea. And yes, I think it's true. I think at some point within the story, within the future, whether Denji and Asa get together or not, she's going to be called Chainsaw Woman because she's either hanging around with Denji or she's aiding the Chainsaw Devil specifically. Most likely it's going to become some sort of importance or relevance later on. You find out a lot more about Yuko, her personality, her friendships, how she doesn't really have any, and Asa's kind of the only genuine friend that she has that has actually checked up on her. And of course in response to this, Asa gives a little bit more about her life and what she's gone through, and it's an awkward stage of a building block for friendship. It feels uncomfortable, but that's kind of the whole point. They're slowly opening up to one another and telling very personal things and drawn out in a way where they tell each other secrets to really become closer to one another, right? Sharing their deepest, darkest secrets that you could never tell anyone. So Asa goes first, it's pretty simple, and Yuko's cracking up laughing about it, right? Pretty standard. But then Yuko shares her secret. Turns out that she killed someone yesterday, her neighbor specifically. Already, what is perfect about this is how it's actually arranged. The panel work being used is repetitive, meaning it's basically the exact same artwork being used over and over again for the whole page, 2 pages, 3 pages, with very slight differences and iterations. There's not much of a response. It's usually 1 or 2 worded, that's about it. And this instantly starts to set in dread, tension, anxiety, because you don't know where this conversation is going. You thought they were just going to share some deep-rooted secrets, and then you find out that Yuko genuinely killed someone, and she says this with a smile on her face. And you can kind of watch the facial expressions of Asa change downwards as you read down, obviously, and you can see the realization set in that Yuko is not lying, that this is the truth, and it's very weird for Asa to even kind of accept accept or acknowledge, kind of questioning the believability of it. But then Yuko doubles down and gives the reasoning on why she done it being very mundane. Her neighbor had a gambling problem and he would use his welfare disability to go gamble, so Yuko thought that's a good enough reason to obviously end him. This does not sit well with Asa, and you can see the confusion, the concern, the realization once again that she's genuinely telling the truth. But the panel work is split up into boxes and it's the exact same artwork of them for 2 pages from top to bottom. The only thing that realistically changes is the tiniest shift in perspective, like the framing is off just a little bit, kind of like camera work to be honest, which makes sense due to Fujimoto's emphasis on camera techniques and movies, etc. But also their facial expressions. Yuko does not change all too much. If anything, because you're reading down and watching her face kind of slowly and slightly morph, she becomes more prideful in this fact that she's genuinely killed someone. And then right beside it, you can see Asa's slowly spiral down this realization of this is real, this is happening, she's not joking. It's beautiful. And the way that Fujimoto ends it off is perfect. It is a double spread panel that's fully fleshed out and rendered, nothing breaking it up, and it's just them sitting there, taking in the moment. No words, no nothing. And honestly, just a beautiful way to full stop that conversation. It's eerie, the tension is there, the way it builds, and everything's just so well conceptualized. From here, the conversation starts to skewer very rapidly and the tensions rise because you can't really tell what Yuko is thinking, what type of person she is, or how quote-unquote insane she might actually be, or how specifically warped, I think is a better word. Asa is trying to understand everything that she just heard, even trying to reaffirm the idea that this is a joke. Yuko's like, no, do you want to see the body? It's in the backyard, but then completely flips back around and gets real happy and joyful again and starts talking about besties and friendship, etc., etc. And it is scary. But then she starts talking about how Asa killed the class president and the teacher and Yoru, the war devil. Turns out Yuko is now in contract with the justice devil. A contract with the justice devil turns your sense of justice into power, and Yuko can now read minds. So now we're in a pretty weird situation. Asa realizes this because it kind of goes to this claustrophobic moment of zooming right in onto her face in a way that is very weird to panel and frame, but is what I believe is meant to form this sense of claustrophobia onto Asa that she knows way too much information. She knows about Yoru, she knows about all of her secrets, she can read minds. So nothing is a secret to her anymore. But then Yuko says that she made the contract to save Asa, which is very directly odd. I don't know the full term legitimacy of that. It might be part of the reasoning, but if it is the only reasoning, Yuko might be a little bit more unhinged than we actually thought. Definitely didn't come off when she was first originally introduced, but after this whole chapter, our perception has entirely changed. And this leads us to the very last page that everyone is talking about, Yuko getting rid of the bullying problem that Asa has, telling her, don't come to school tomorrow. If you don't know what those words mean, I'm honestly very happy for you, because depending on where you live, how much contact you make with certain groups or social settings, even video games, even how much you're online, it's going to make or break whether you know what those words mean or not. Unfortunately, for YouTube guidelines' sake, I cannot explain the implication. All I can say is just think about what Yuko has done to her neighbor. Think about her having this very warped sense of justice. She wants to get rid of the bullying problem for Asa, and she's telling Asa to not go to school tomorrow. When you add all of those things together, and maybe your innocent brain doesn't want to think about it, which perfectly fine, I understand, but there is mass destruction, there is obliteration, annihilation, whatever kind of YouTube safe word that I can use for this situation. The way Yuko is framed here is honestly scary. She does not look like the Yuko that we once knew. And I do think it is because of potentially the warped justice she had prior to being contracted with the Justice Devil, but more so how it's amplified now. The problem is that she can read minds, so people cannot lie to her, and even if they do lie, she's going to take that as being obviously a bad thing, and she's going to enact her own judgment onto people as how she sees fit. And we've kind of seen that personification for her when she was introduced as a character. As long as she believes in her heart that it is right, it doesn't matter if she makes mistakes. This is a very big problem now that she has the power to actually cause some massive harm. The sense of feeling you get from the ending of this chapter is just sickening, to be honest. It's tragic, heartbreaking just from the implication itself, but it's so beautifully conceptualized. It's weird to say because of what it is, but how much of an understanding of portraying emotion and weaving it through the chapter and building this type of intensity and anxiety to have it all clash and crescendo right at the the highest peak at the ending to really leave us on such a lingering note is for me absolute perfection. Personally, I don't think a lot of authors would be able to handle this type of tailoring, especially with all the information that is given. I think it would come off maybe too dramatic or angsty or too aggressive or psychotic even. It has none of that. If anything, it feels real, eerily real. And I think it just goes to show how well Fujimoto is able to handle the type of emotion being portrayed by his characters. He knows how long to draw out scenes and to really make us as readers sit within the moment, just to take it all in, just to fully realize, just like Asa, what is going on. So that's the entirety of the chapter. But before I end this off, I want to talk about Yuko versus Denji. I think we are very close to this point. Asa was originally talking with Yoru on how to draw a devil to school so Denji would come out to play. Yuko is now replacing that idea and becoming that devil. Now, I don't know what lengths Yuko will go to at school, but I do think that she will come in contact with Denji. There's two problems here. Firstly, Denji doesn't really have a moral compass. He doesn't care about saving people specifically, but more so just to fuel his own idea or fantasy about certain things, right? This is funny within the grand scheme because it's the worst thing that can go up against Yuko and her warped idealization of justice. See, now that she can read the minds of Chainsaw Man, she's going to think of two things. One, her infatuation with Chainsaw Man because she's partially obsessed and loves the idea of Chainsaw Man, but that might not live up to the expectation. The second thing, she's obviously going to find out Denji's identity, but the fact that he does not really care about morals or justice in general. He may be thinking about immoral things, as he normally does, and this may be enough for Yuko to take that charge. So Asa and Yoru are most likely going to be there as well, or maybe rock up late, and you have a very conflicting situation. Yuko likes Chainsaw Man, but doesn't like Denji. Does she conflate the two? Does she try to separate them? Does she try to purify Chainsaw Man by serving her own act of judgment upon them? Does Asa step in to try and save Denji? Does Asa try to convince Denji to save Yuko and bring her back? Is Yoru just going to be laughing and having a fun time because this is exactly what she wanted? I don't know. But you can see that the conflict is right there. It is on the cusp of exploding into something much, much bigger than what we originally expected. I don't even know how Denji would react to this situation. I don't think he would care. I think he would just handle it like any other situation potentially. But if Asa is involved, if Yoshida and the War Devil is involved, we know that Yoshida is going to clean up any loose ends that come from this. Now that Yuko can read minds, she may just end up dead regardless of any sort of good or bad outcome. Even if Asa saves Yuko or Denji or whatever, Yoshida will most likely get rid of her. Regardless, something is about to go down. It's going to be very massive, very problematic for everyone. It's going to be a good time. This chapter was beautiful, heartbreaking, incredibly well conceptualized, and honestly just filled with so much unnerving tension. It was suffocating, but gorgeous. Let me know what you thought about it.